Any objections? Or there you go.
Sorry, jumped the gun a little bit.
Welcome, Anita. I see you. How are you? And Monique, thank you for joining us. Diane,
It's good to see you.
thank you. We have, and welcome, Jackie. How are you?
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, Mom, I couldn't unmute. This is Diane.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have anybody else in the waiting list or in the waiting room, David, or how are we doing?
Everybody is in the meeting as of right now.
Okay,
And Britt Ronson is here now.
wonderful. Welcome, Ronson.
Hi, everyone.
Well, okay, maybe we'll go ahead and start. And welcome to the Senior Working Group of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. My name is Britt Huff, and I'm chairing this committee and a former president, I should say chair of the South Bay Council, and city council member from the city of Rolling Hills Estates. So very pleased to welcome all of you. At the end, we're going to have a discussion time, and we'll do a little bit more introductions of our attendees. But because we have a couple of really good speakers this morning, we're going to kind of get right into that. But I did want to introduce our new staff person for the working group, and that is Ronson Chu. Can you wave a little bit for people? There you go. Welcome. And Ronson's going to do a little bit of a discussion of some of our plans going forward, and we'll do that toward the end. I hope you all can stay for that. But so let's start with Courtney, Courtney Reed, who is with PATH, People Assisting Homeless, and she does a little update for us at each meeting. We appreciate you being here. Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I actually wanted to introduce Anna to this group. She's our new outreach program manager. She's been with PATH for a little over a year. She started here last year as a problem solving specialist, and she was promoted to program manager a few months ago. So she's going to give the update today. So take it away, Anna.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be here joining you this morning. So on our caseloads, we currently have 27 seniors. 5 of them have been housed already. And for the remaining amount of seniors that we have on our caseloads, we have submitted emergency housing vouchers interest surveys requests, and we're just waiting for the response in regards to that. And we're still case managing them and assisting them with any other assistance they may need.
Wonderful. Any questions of Anna? I might start by saying that we are seeing, I should mention my day job, I'm director of a nonprofit called HELP that works with seniors, and we're seeing a lot more seniors getting vouchers right away to get into, get off of the streets or out of their cars and into, some kind of motel housing. So I'm pleased to see that. I'm assuming that's stemming from all of the additional funding that's coming in.
Yes, we are. We've noticed since the vouchers came down around in July that seniors are getting the priority to getting actual issuances. I'm not sure on our team if we had one issuance so far, but the process is you submit the interest application and the interest form survey, and then the housing authority sends us back an application. And we have like a very tight turnaround to fill out that application. It's pretty thick. And then they turn that around, turn that in within 5 days. And then hopefully within the next, week or 2 or 3 or 4, we get the actual date that says, meet with us this day for your issuance. And so it's hit and miss, it's very random, but across all of my teams, we've had some success. And so we're super excited that it seems like the seniors are the people getting the priority for the vouchers.
Wonderful. Good. Any other questions? Yes, Monique.
Courtney and Anna, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? I mean, if they need assistance?
The first step, we ask folks to put to submit LA HOP requests. So la-hop.org is the first request to, have an outreach team go out to meet with that person, kind of assess their situation. We have a problem solving conversation. You can also call, Anna put the website in the chat as well.
Good.
You can also give them our numbers if they need to have that problem solving conversation, and we can kind of just go from there. And so I'll have Anna put our numbers in the chat as well.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Okay, any other questions? Before we proceed, I want to introduce our executive director for the South Bay Cities COG, and that is Jackie Bacharach. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very
Raise your
much.
hand, Jackie. Good to have
Yes.
you here. Okay, well, let us go to our first topic of the morning, and that is the whole issue about ADUs. And I'm going to introduce, we have a panel, and they will make a short presentation, and then we'll have some discussion and opportunity for questions and answers. And I would like to introduce first Jeannie Naughton, who is from my city of Rolling Hills Estate. She is our planning manager for the planning department. And so I will welcome and thank you for being with us, Jeannie. And so I'll turn it over to Jeannie first.
All right, great. Thank you, Councilmember Huff, and good morning, everyone. I've prepared a brief PowerPoint presentation. So I'll go ahead and share my screen right now. Let me move this over so everyone can see. What I'm going to do today is just walk you through an overview of the new legislation, how it changes the issue regarding ADUs and JADUs, and what our city of Rolling Hills Estates is doing to assist our residents. Can everyone see my screen? I feel like the my little Zoom thing is blocking things here. Okay,
Yeah,
so
just perfectly. That's good.
okay,
Yeah.
great. In 2019 and 20 legislative session, there were 19 new housing related bills that were signed into law and went into effect at the beginning of 2020. 6 of those laws specifically addressed accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. And all of those housing bills were meant to address what the legislature has determined to be a statewide housing crisis of both supply and affordability. The Housing Crisis Act of 2019, Senate Bill 330, for example, notes that in 2018, California ranked 49th out of 50 states in housing units per capita, had 7 of the 10 most expensive real estate markets in the United States, and of the 50 United States cities with the highest United States rents, 33 were cities in California. See if I can get my computer to cooperate. So this is a list of the bills that specifically addressed ADUs. In addition to supply and affordability, the legislature also saw bureaucratic barriers, lengthy permitting processes, approval times, fees and costs for parking as further exacerbating the cost of residential construction. And so these components were also addressed in the new ADU and JADU bills during that session. So just a brief history, the legislature has long promoted ADUs as a viable source of affordable housing in California, major metropolitan areas like Los Angeles, where single family homes make up at least 50% of the housing stock. And beginning in the early 1980s, state laws directed that secondary units, as they were called, be permitted in all California jurisdictions. And since then, they've been known by many names: secondary units, granny flats, in-law units, backyard cottages, and today we call them accessory dwelling units. Approval was largely discretionary, however, as long as jurisdictions didn't create requirements that were so arbitrary, excessive, or burdensome so as to unreasonably restrict the ability of homeowners to create second units, then they could go ahead and have their local processes. However, that's really the key point there, because it did end up, those local requirements did end up meaning that in order to build an ADU or a JADU was very, very difficult. So the legislature in 2016 and 17 then passed another series of laws which made significant changes to ADUs and the creation of junior accessory dwelling units, or JADUs. They did remove most of the discretionary powers of local jurisdictions, but they still kept in that quote at the bottom that it must meet the underlying zoning district development standards. And again, that's really a key point, because most of these units couldn't meet those local underlying zoning development standards. So the new laws, the legislature sought to address those deficiencies, most notably by bypassing the requirement to meet those underlying zoning district development standards unique to a jurisdiction. So essentially, these new laws were leveling the playing field statewide. It is, a one-size-fits-all approach for certain types of ADUs. Does require ministerial approval regardless of local development standards, which means if you meet the code requirements, you get a building permit, as opposed to having to go through a discretionary process like going before a planning commission or a design or architectural review board or a city council. And the new laws also did apply new enforcement mechanisms for the Department of Housing and Community Development and the State Attorney General's office. So what's happening right now is HCD, Housing and Community Development, when they're reviewing local jurisdictions' housing elements, which are under review right now, they're also reviewing the ADU ordinance that each local jurisdiction adopted in 2020 or 2021, depending on where a jurisdiction is. City of Rolling Hills Estates, we adopted it in the spring of 2020. They're looking to make sure that those ordinances are in compliance with state law. If they're not, they're going to give back comments to that jurisdiction of changes that they need to make. If the jurisdiction ignores HCD, then HCD is then obligated to notify the State Attorney General's office, and there's possibility of lawsuit. So what can you do? In single family residential and multifamily, you can have ADUs and JADUs. In a single family zone property, you can have one ADU plus a JADU. And I have asterisks next to some of these things because there are lots of exceptions in terms of size and things like that. In the multifamily districts, you can have at least one, but up to 25% of the existing number of units, and not more than 2 detached ADUs. In terms of size, if all the development standards can be met, including lot coverage, you can have at least an 850 square foot ADU for a studio and 1 bedroom. And for local jurisdictions, one of the things that the new laws did allow for a jurisdiction was to bring that max size down to 1,000. State law does allow up to 1,200 square feet. So depending on the jurisdiction, they'll either allow 1,200 as a max size or 1,000 square feet. In Rolling Hills Estates, we're capping that at 1,000 square feet. But every lot is guaranteed, even if you're already maxed out on lot coverage, to have at least an ADU that's at least 800 square feet. In terms of JADUs, the max size of those are less than or equal to 500 square feet. They must be contained within an existing or proposed primary dwelling or garage, so already existing space. In terms of development standards, those ADUs can be as close as 4 feet from a side and rear property line. and they can be a maximum of 16 feet in height for a detached one-story ADU. In terms of parking, these new laws really relaxed the requirement for parking. There are a lot of exemptions where no parking would be required if you're within 1.5 mile of public transit, unlike other housing laws where they really define that public transit as a high quality transit area with minimum headways for intersection of bus lines or other types of transit. This just means any bus stop or any public transit that's within 1.5 mile. And anytime a garage or carport or covered parking structure is demolished, when you're turning it into an ADU or a JADU, a local jurisdiction cannot require that replacement parking be provided. Previous laws did require owner occupancy for ADUs. These new laws are putting a stay on that until the beginning of 2025. So there's no owner occupancy required for the ADU. Jurisdictions can require that there's a deed restriction that be recorded that says that they can't be used for short-term rental or sold separately. And I'm not quite sure, well, I'm not quite sure. There were some inconsistencies in these laws, but there is an owner occupancy required for JADUs. So it's kind of an interesting inconsistency. In terms of processing timelines, the new laws did cut down the processing timeline in half. There are still some exceptions where discretionary review is required if an ADU were to be proposed at a second story, for example, on a single family home, or if there's any variance that's necessary. And even with the variances, there are some asterisks that should be included in there, because if you have an existing structure that currently doesn't meet the development standards that would otherwise require a variance, you still can demolish and replace in exactly the same space without requiring a variance if it's being turned into an ADU. So the new laws are really just making it a lot easier for you to actually build these units on the property and get those extra units. There's also an enforcement delay that was built into the new laws. A property owner may request a delay in enforcement for up to 5 years. And that's whether the ADU was built prior to enaction of the law or before. And if there were to be any kind of notices of violation sent out by a city, that city is required to include that owner's right to delay enforcement until January 2025. That delay of enforcement is in there. So what is Rolling Hills Estates doing? We utilized a portion of our SB2 grant funds, and we're currently creating an ADU program where we're building out a website and also pre-approved plans where we'll have four different sizes, ranging from a little below 600 square feet all the way up to 1,000 square feet, and 3 different architectural styles. And those plans will be available on our website free of charge for anyone for the public to download those and use them as they see fit. So in terms of our website, we're going to be trying to keep it as simple as possible. We're going to have the what, why, how in our resource section. So all the basics about what an ADU is, what the types are, attached, detached, conversion, the benefits. We're also going to be doing cost estimates, what property owners can expect in terms of soft costs, as well as construction costs for the ADUs and JADUs, and an interactive flow chart, our pre-approved plans. And then we're also developing objective design standards in case somebody doesn't want to use the pre-approved plans and they want to go ahead and design something of their own. Those objective design guidelines will help them understand very easily what those requirements would be in order for them to get their plans approved. So this is just a screenshot of our interactive flow chart that we'll have. You'll be able to click on this, and there's kind of those two different avenues that you can do, either utilize the pre-approved plans or go ahead and go through the custom designs. And then any options for changing little things in there before you can actually submit to building and safety. I think that my screen is covering these a bit, but these are just some floor plan examples of the 4 sizes that we have: our studio and our 1-bedroom and our 1-bedroom plus, which has an office that could be converted into a second unit. In this floor plan, for example, we're showing an ADA compliant bathroom, but that bathroom, there is an option where you could reduce that to a non-ADA bathroom, get you a little more space for that office area to be converted into a bedroom. And then on the right-hand side, we have our 2-bedroom unit that is just below the max of 1,000 square feet. And then in terms of architectural style in the city of Rolling Hills Estates, we predominantly have kind of ranch style architecture, Mediterranean style, and kind of a farmhouse approach as the 3 predominant architectural styles. So these are just some screenshots of our farmhouse style ADU that will be available for homeowners to utilize in those off-the-shelf plans. So the pre-approved plans will end up saving our residents a considerable amount of money in terms of the design and preparation of the plans. We currently have those going through building and safety right now for plan check, and we'll be providing the architectural, the structural, electrical, plumbing. The only plans that residents will have to prepare is an overall site plan and soils report. So that's an overview from me. I'm happy to answer any questions that the panel may have, and thank you very much for your time.
Hey, Brett, you're on mute.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Jeannie. That's such a great overview. And the reason we brought this subject to you this morning is because we feel that it does provide an excellent opportunity for seniors who are on fixed incomes and working within families to provide reasonably priced housing for seniors. So we just feel, and of course, this whole legislative process was very problematic for those of us who, are trying to represent our constituents in the best way we can. And of course, so many of us were concerned about local control and having the state dictate. And of course, that's in the issue of maintaining our residential areas and so forth. But now that this legislation has passed, we feel, let's work with it and put it to the best possible use for those people that can really benefit from that. And that's, low income, people on fixed incomes, and seniors, families that want to have perhaps an extended family living arrangement. So many times that we have both people in a couple are working. It's wonderful to have an extended family right on the property that they can support each other in raising children. So that's one of the reasons we felt it might be of interest to you. And am I right, Jeannie, that most cities are putting together something like this, or are we just being terribly innovative? I think the legislation kind of requires this, is it right?
I think we're really lucky that the Sp2 Grant Fund applications were made available to all jurisdictions. And I think there are several jurisdictions that are utilizing those funds for an ADU program. There are a handful of jurisdictions doing these off-the-shelf plans. But for the most part, I think we saw that as a staff level as being a very important component, because as you point out, this is a wonderful opportunity to produce units that are affordable and to keep families together and have multi-generations on the property. And so cutting down the costs of the soft costs, the upfront costs for construction, we thought was a very valuable resource to offer our residents.
Wonderful. Yes, Monique, and you're on mute. No, you're-
Great. I think that this is very interesting, and it's very interesting to see that RHE is putting out these pre-approved plans. Are any of the other 3 cities here one of the jurisdictions that is kind of doing a similar thing as well?
I
On the
don't
list.
believe so. I believe that Rolling Hills Estates is the only city on the Palos Verdes Peninsula that's developing a program like this.
I think if you, maybe Jonathan has more to say about this. Our next speaker, if I can just mention this, our next speaker is Jeannie mentioned that there are 19 new laws, and a lot of things are coming at cities. And so the cities of the South Bay have agreed to actually assess themselves for the COG, the Council of Governments, to hire a planner that will help us address these on a regional basis. And we do have a project that's dealing with ADUs. And Jonathan Pacheco-Bell, who I don't know if you're ready for him yet, but he's the next speaker, and he is our new regional planner, and will maybe be able to talk about some of these things on a more regional basis.
Yes, that's a great segue. And Jackie and I have this kind of dog and pony show we do where we set this up. But so let's hold the questions for Jeannie, and we'll move to the other speakers, and then we can kind of get the big picture and have questions after that. So welcome, Jonathan. We appreciate your being here this morning, and we'll turn it over to you.
Actually, Brett, if I may actually put together a little program in place for our next 2 speakers. I'd like to kind of formally introduce them, and also just walk the everyone through kind of a little discussion on ADUs. Love to introduce. So our, like Jackie mentioned, Jonathan is the South Bay City Council of Governments on the planning side. He actually also he also teaches part-time at Cal Poly Pomona, and he actually comes to us with an interesting experience with code enforcement while he was with the county's urban planning department on ADUs, and so he'll get into that in just a bit. But I also want to introduce Douglas Look, who is also our 3rd speaker on the panel. In the brief time I've met him, I can tell he's a very visionary thinker. He's a licensed architect and is a principal at Look Systems, a design firm. Prior to that, he worked with a firm called Modern Empathy, a modular ADU company where he conceived this thing called Community Age-Friendly Living Model, otherwise known as CALM, which is a model for older adults to age in place. And the ADU is a component of that. He also serves as board of director for the Center of Age-Friendly Excellence, which provides technical assistance for communities looking to be inclusive for all generations. But first, Jonathan, if you can just walk us through some examples of what happens if maybe your ADU is not to code, and kind of what happens after that.
Thank you, Ronson. Thank you all for having me today. I think Jeannie provided a really, really strong foundation and legal framework that we now have. And what I'll be doing is showing you with my slide deck what unpermitted ADUs look like. And these are from before the new laws were in place, but I can assure you that many of these types of unpermitted ADUs still exist throughout the LA region and within our South Bay geography. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that there? Learning from unpermitted ADUs? Wonderful, thank you. As Ronson mentioned, I am an urban planner, but I have a background in zoning and code enforcement because at LA County, the planners are the ones who go out there and enforce the code. So I did that for about 13 years. I was at LA County Regional Planning in the South Bay area in communities like West Athens and Lenox and Del Air, in the unincorporated South LA parts, as well as many other parts of the county. I worked in all 5 supervisor districts. So I was able to go out for over a decade to respond to reports of unpermitted housing and many other types of zoning violations. Unpermitted housing is the most common one. I think it comes down essentially to a lot of housing need. and the lack of being able to build affordable housing has just gone on for so long. We have so much density here. We have a lot of housing need, and only now have we started to see laws change to allow for building some new housing. But for the longest time, we just had so much unpermitted housing out there that it kept me and my colleagues very busy. Just as a kind of foundation to start it off, this is all part of urban planning. I define urban planning as guiding the direction and the development of communities in partnership with community members of all ages. I think it is a horizontal partnership in moving our communities forward where we want to go. That entails a lot. It entails zoning and long-range plans and community development, engagement, of course, permits. But it's something that I always like to point out. It also entails code enforcement. Now, most jurisdictions don't use planners for code enforcement. Most jurisdictions use code enforcement officers, retired police, building and safety, another type of municipal service agent. But and that's all well and good. What the benefit is when you use planners as enforcement, I can speak to this personally. The planner is actually going out there on the ground and seeing what the actuality of the community looks like. So in this case here, this is one image from me going out to an industrial property that is in South LA, and seeing the actual conditions. When you're out there with your feet on the ground, you can really get a sense of what's happening. You also get to know the people very, very closely as a planner. You get to take all this intimate knowledge back and write codes, write ordinances, craft policy that's really reflective of the actualities of community life. So I'm going to be getting into just a quick series of images that show different forms of unpermitted housing. And it's going to progress from very kind of concerning and sort of tragic versions of this, things that we don't want to see, to what we have now. And this is meant to show you that there is a lot of different types of unpermitted housing out there. And we're going to get to some takeaways at the end that'll give us a pathway forward. So this first one is an example of something that you would see often in the urban core in LA. This is an unpermitted converted garden shed that was turned into a housing unit. There was an older gentleman living in there paying rent of about, I think it was about $500 at the time. As you can see from the photo stamp, I took this in 2013. This had sort of jury-rigged electrical and hot pots and very unsafe conditions. This is something that is really concerning to see, but when you have an acute housing need and a lack of housing available, this is what honestly ends up happening. People will find ways to build housing and find ways to live in housing, even if it is unpermitted and substandard. Another very, very sad and kind of tragic instance that I found was a person living in basically a U-Haul trailer on a driveway. You can see here that the person has a TV inside and a fan because it gets incredibly hot. Their clothes double as their bedding. There's an electrical cord you can see running down, and it goes to the main house. And what I found from talking with the renter here and eventually talking with the owner is that there was empty rooms in the house. But for whatever reason, the arrangement was made that this person would live in this type of unpermitted dwelling unit on the driveway. This is something that was a community complaint because it was very obvious, but a lot of times these things are happening in the backyard and they're there, the unpermitted housing is there for a long time without anybody knowing about it. But again, this is something that we see, forms of unpermitted housing that really show the acute need that we've had building in LA for a very long time. Here's a more common version that you see, an unpermitted garage conversion. A lot of times garages are used for storage. They're used for accessory uses like turning it into an office or a gym or something other than parking your garage, which was for the longest time the only codified allowed use of a covered parking facility. Now we have changes that allow us to convert garages legally. But before 2017, it was basically always unpermitted because you nearly almost always had to replace your garage with another garage on site or a carport. And in smaller areas within the urbanized core, for example, and even in our suburban parts, you just didn't have enough space to build a new garage. So many garage conversions were just de facto illegal, unpermitted. Now we're getting into some more versions of unpermitted housing that look more like the ADUs of today. but still unpermitted. This is from 2016. This is before the new laws went into effect. The building that you're looking straight down at with the kind of tan wall, that is an unpermitted ADU in the backyard of a house in South LA. And you can see it's located behind the original permitted garage, which is off to the right. You can see that with the gray clapboard siding. So now that ADU would almost possibly, it would almost entirely be allowed to be permitted. I would have to check on those original setbacks, but I'm almost certain that this ADU would have been allowed to been permitted and kept in this person's backyard. But prior to those new laws, they had no choice. They had no recourse. I had to go there and tell them to demolish it. So that's one thing that I wanted to raise up in the conversations that we're having here. In my time as a zoning enforcement planner, I lost track of how many times I made people cry. I made people aware of zoning laws that they weren't aware of, that were resulting in them removing housing for their grandparents, removing housing for their relatives. And it was really hard for me as an urban planner who was doing enforcement to hear that over and over and over for over a decade. The hardest was when people would say things like, well, where's my grandmother going to live? Right? So it really came as a blessing for me when the laws started to change, because I saw something that we'll be talking about in my takeaways. I saw a pathway forward finally. Here's another unpermitted unit that can almost certainly be permitted now. Outside of the setbacks, complies with the development standards. It was not substandard at all. It just was not allowed at the time, right? So this person, even though they had a backyard dwelling unit for their family, had no recourse at the time but to demolish it, because before, the zoning laws that were in place were set up such that you really had no way to keep backyard housing. And we're now getting to today where we have permitted backyard housing. So we saw those versions that I encountered, that I had to enforce against for many years. And here's what we have now. This is from the city of Pasadena. This is a backyard unit that doesn't look that much different than this one right here. But this is now legal. This is something that we can do because the new laws are finally allowing it. So, if I was still a zoning enforcement planner, I probably wouldn't have to tell people that they need to move their grandmother out of the backyard house. I can probably tell them, you know what, even though this is unpermitted, you have a pathway and you have an ability to potentially keep it for 5 years and legalize it after the fact. Those kind of things weren't around when I was doing this work in South LA and the county areas. Jeannie went over the new laws. I won't go over this because we got a really great overview, but these new laws have made it possible for us to do this type of work in our communities. There are many benefits to having ADUs, especially for our senior communities. Just really quickly, you can have housing for all ages and all abilities. You can have your family stay close but still maintain privacy. This is affordable housing. This is often used to meet RENA numbers. This is a way to increase your property values. If you want to rent it out, it could be a way for additional income. It maintains single family character. There's just so many benefits. And as my colleague Doug will talk about, this is a way to age in place. I want to offer up 5 takeaways from my experience being on the ground enforcing the code against ADUs before they were allowed to be legal. Number 1, the vast majority of unpermitted ADUs out there are not substandard. They're not falling down and they're not dangerous to live in. It was just a matter of the code saying they couldn't be there. Number 2, most property owners and tenants of unpermitted ADUs, they are not scofflaws. They weren't trying to stick it to the city or the county. They oftentimes simply did not know that these zoning codes existed. And it's my job as a planner, it's our job to let them know through education now that we can potentially keep unpermitted ADUs and build ones anew. Number 3, many ADUs exist in our communities in backyards for decades without permits, and there are no problems. People don't even realize that they're unpermitted. So it's something to keep in mind, especially when we want to try to legalize things that are not substandard after the fact to keep housing in our communities. Number 4, ADUs are affordable housing for our elders, for our seniors, our family, and just our community writ large. And 5, the new state laws that are in place provide a viable pathway for us to actually keep existing unpermitted ADUs and build ADUs anew. Thank you, everybody. And I think we're going to be holding off the questions till the end. So I'll kick it back to Ronson for queuing up Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. That was great. Love the pictures. Yeah, our next speaker, Doug, he has a very holistic vision of what ADUs can be in the future, especially for seniors and communities. Doug, can you walk us through your COM model and kind of give us that vision of it's more than just a granny flat in the backyard. This could be something more than just that.
Yeah, thanks, Ronson. So this work comes from research that I've been doing over the past couple of years, working with a small startup whose focus is creating and designing ADUs called Modern Empathy. And the reason I was attracted to helping out and doing consulting with them is that the higher level mission has been enabling families and older adults to sustain living, healthy and independently in their own home. So as Ronson was saying, so here's a typical ADU services model. I think Jeannie went through, the extended workflow model. If you look around, this is a pretty standard process. At the end of it, you get a nice ADU. It can be affordable, it can be achievable, et cetera. However, in the bigger picture of helping older adults and their families age in place, that's really just the beginning. There really needs to be an expanded way of looking at this, because what's critical in this is to not only provide access to the housing, but to also support that with services and a set of community services, as well as caregiving services, transportation services, et cetera. So what I've been trying to do with this community age-friendly living model, which we're calling CALM, is to try to identify people, partnerships to kind of build and support this kind of integrated network community that will help older adults. And so that's why I was very, excited to join the COG South Bay to discuss this with you. And really what the key is, instead of thinking of ADUs as individual, discrete, separate units, why can't we think of them as kind of connected and networked? Think of, instead of discrete individual ADUs, building communities of ADUs. Maybe they are co-located, next to each other, but maybe they exist within existing neighborhoods. Provides opportunities, I think, as others have said, for intergenerational living and support. Also, the model envisions providing multiple care services and support services coming to you in the comfort of your own home. So it's really inverting the whole assisted living nursing home model and saying, hey, you know what? Research has shown that the longer that you can stay in your own home, the more healthy and independent, and actually it's going to yield extreme cost savings to the overall care system as well. So what are some of my kind of reflections on this space at a high level? What can we do? What can you do as municipalities? We've talked extensively about policy. This is ongoing. This is happening. I think this, even at the local level, this can be continued to be worked on. I think this educating the public on what the opportunities are. These are relatively new things, and how does one go about financing an ADU? How does one go about actually getting a permit, et cetera? So there's a lot of education that can be done. And also looking at ways that municipalities can provide some of this integrated support, whether it's caregiving, food services, transportation, et cetera, and potentially even financial assistance and supplementing this as opportunity. And what do we gain if we're able to do this? Well, obviously, I think there's a better quality of life for aging adults. I think we have an ability to keep people in the neighborhoods they grew up in and they want to stay in, and that will help us maintain strong neighborhoods. And basically, this is an opportunity to increase the density, in single-family zoned areas to provide additional housing that's quite needed. And it's also a way of looking at families to start creating wealth. Potentially for some families, it's a wealth transfer mechanism to transfer wealth from one generation to the next. So those are some high-level things. This is just me. I went through this very quickly, but if folks have more questions that we're probably going to run out of time today, I'd be happy to connect and share more detail. I do have extended case study of this research work. So this is just really the high-level executive summary. But thanks, Ronson, and others for the opportunity to share this with you today.
Great, thanks, Douglas. I'll kick it back to Brett for like the Q&A. I had one quick question for Jeannie. Jeannie, have you seen an increase in demand for ADU permits since the new laws were put in place in your area?
A slight increase. We never really had too high of a volume of ADU applications. Basically 1 or 2 a year. And as a result of the new laws, we've seen maybe about a dozen. So quite an increase for a small jurisdiction like Rolling Hills Estates, but I believe that other jurisdictions that might be more densely populated, closer to transit, have seen a much higher increase in the number of applications.
I think there's some statistics on the number of permits that have been issued in the state of California, and I think you're right. It's kind of a hockey stick, especially since 2020.
Well, and I think that by taking the initiative, as our city is doing, that we can help guide this process. When you see the examples that Jeannie gave of the housing and the plans that are provided, it's just very tastefully done. It's a pleasant place where someone would like to live. I don't think it's going to cause problems with the neighbors because it's so attractive. And I think that's the approach we want to take, that, everybody's very supportive of this. And I think, our next step will be, after we get the plans in place, to do some outreach and publicity and let people know that these services are involved. I did want to ask a question from Jonathan. You touched on arena numbers. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for everyone?
So we have from the state, from Sacramento, and through SCAG, we have Southern California Association of Governments. We have a regional housing needs assessment numbers, and that is an allocation to all of our jurisdictions that the jurisdictions need to respond to and provide for a certain capacity of affordable housing. And some jurisdictions have numbers that are smaller and maybe easily reachable, and some have very large numbers, very large arena numbers that might be a little harder to hit. But one way that I've been seeing, talking to all of our community development directors in the South Bay, is that ADUs are being used to meet those arena numbers. So it's not only building new high density housing or converting existing buildings into housing, it's also using accessory dwelling units to reach those numbers, to satisfy those requirements. And again, as I had pointed out, a lot of these backyard housing developments, these arrangements are already there. So if they are not substandard, or if there's a way to legalize them, we have a potential to keep people in place and to bring that in as affordable housing and to meet RHNA numbers as one of many outcomes.
Thank you. Lori, did you have your hand up?
I did. Thank you. Very informative presentations. I really appreciated that. Just a couple quick questions, kind of piggyback on what he was just saying, is the idea. One of the ideas here is to keep these as affordable. So I'm not quite sure how you would control that, but I followed the ADUs in the city of LA, and some of the pushback has been short-term rentals, that people are creating them almost to make little mini hotels in their backyard. And of course, that's not the intention here, But I just have concerns that that doesn't happen, and that we are able to make these affordable, and especially for the senior population.
On that point, I could address really quickly. The new laws specifically address that, indicating that ADUs shall not be rented for less than 30 days. And that is to address specifically that concern. So putting my enforcement hat back on, if we are made aware of ADUs that are used as short-term rentals, if it's something that is reported to the local jurisdiction, or if it's something that the local jurisdiction finds out, perhaps the next step would be to consider enforcement action, to do an inspection, to do an investigation. There are options there, but there is codification in the new laws that address that because of the very widespread concern about turning ADUs into short-term rentals statewide.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You can just, looking for hands, but also if anyone just wants to wave their hand.
I had a quick question for Douglas, actually. I know you serve on the board of Cafe, and I was just wondering if you had any like kind of real world cities that are kind of looking to have this more holistic approach for their seniors.
Well, we're still in the process of trying to move this concept forward. We did this past year build a coalition with the city of Daly City. We put together a proposal based on the CALM model and submitted that to fund a pilot project with the Bloomberg Global Mayor's Challenge. Unfortunately, we lost it out to a city like Buenos Aires or something. But there are definitely municipalities. I think we've also we're more focused in Northern California. So communities like East Palo Alto and Sunnyvale have also shown interest. But I mean, this is a pretty expansive, big idea. But what we're trying to do is actually trying to find ways to get support to do a small pilot to start to test out some of these concepts. And the real difference is trying to overlay services specifically for seniors along with the notion of ADUs, because any of us that are involved in helping older adults age like I do with my mother know that 90% of what goes on is not just the ADU or the environment, but it's the support and caregiving services that also go along with that.
Great. Okay, Bronson, do you have any additional wrap-up points on this?
No, I think that was great. And we'll be sending everyone the PowerPoint presentations after the meeting.
Wonderful. And well, thank you all very much to our panelists for all the preparation you did on this. And I just think it's exciting moving forward, the plans that are in place. So thank you very much. You're welcome to stay for our next speaker. I know you also have demands on your time, so if you need to leave, we appreciate your joining us. Thank you. And so now I want to move on to our next speaker, who is Carol Kitabayashi with the Westside Pacific Villages. And Carol was instrumental in helping both of our local village programs getting started, the South Bay Cities Village and the Palos Verdes Village. So welcome, Carol. Thank you so much. And I think this fits in very well with what we've been talking about, and appreciate you being here. And Ronson, did you have a few introductory remarks?
Yeah, it looks like Carol has had, has been with Westside Villages for, it was almost a decade now, Westside Pacific Villages. So she has a lot of good experiences with this villages concept, and really excited to just hear her presentation.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? I hope, just a few guesses. Okay, and I assume, thank you for letting me share my screen. So I do want to share, I think after listening to that presentation, I was very interested, so I was happy to be able to attend to listen to all that. This village model that some of you may be familiar with already actually does address the issue that was raised around how to provide services to aging parents or older adults who have the desire to age in community. So very quickly, just about some background, this village model and concept really is about creating that sense of community and support for the older adults who want to age in place. And so again, I think this goes very nicely with the presentations that were just had. And villages, for those of you who are not familiar with, but yes, there's one up in Palos Verdes, there's the South Bay Village. And so we are self-governing, we're volunteer driven. Our goal is to basically leverage individuals as well as other community partners from a particular community in order to support and help folks continue to enjoy their homes, whatever that home may be. It could be a single family home, it could be a condominium, it could be an ADU, it could even be an independent living facility where somebody is spending time as they get older. And it's a very cost-effective way to provide some very basic support and help. I'll go over what we do and what many other villages do. But essentially, it's also a very grassroots, so it's usually a bottoms-up type of movement. And we also, many villages pride themselves on being intergenerational. So we have people of all ages that get involved to provide support and social engagement. But our focus is on the oldest residents in the community. This group obviously is familiar with the statistics, so I won't go into all of that. And I think you all know that most older adults want to age in their home. What I want to stress is that villages really strive to tailor the support they provide to the communities they serve. So while there's villages across the country, they all vary in different ways. So the Palos Verdes Peninsula Village may be slightly different than Westside Pacific villages, but our mission remains the same. Okay, so Westside Pacific villages started in the Westchester Playa del Rey area, so that's right around the airport. And over the last 10 years, we have actually expanded into communities around the airport, including going to the north, Culver City and Mar Vista, to the east, Ladera Heights and Inglewood. And then we also have traveled south into El Segundo and Manhattan Beach. And then at our present time, there is an effort. We do want to move further east into the Inglewood and Hawthorne area. So I know these are cities that are part of the South Bay community. Prior to the pandemic, these were the types of services and activities that we provided. A lot of it, again, is about helping people to stay as independent as possible, to maintain that vital social connection. So things like technology training, walking buddies, friendly visits. We had a call a neighbor program, which was a monthly check-in call, a friendly call. We provide transportation services, going to the grocery store. These were things, again, if you think back before the pandemic, we were doing, and we had in-person activities. And this is very common among other villages across the country and also locally. We had just started social activity groups, which were volunteer-led groups. So you can see we had a craft group, we had a monthly potluck. And again, keep in mind, this is all to help older adults continue to stay active and engaged in their homes and communities that they love. So when the pandemic hit last year, we were actually poised and in a great position to really take the services that we provide and leverage the infrastructure that we had in order to help as many seniors as possible. If you think back to last year in March, there was really an outpouring of support wanting to help the older adult community. They were the ones identified as the most vulnerable and impacted by the coronavirus. So we made the decision that we were going to waive our membership fees. And for the last year and a half, we have been running a free program in order to support seniors in the community. And we also expanded beyond our stated borders. And we are in the midst now of transitioning back to a membership fee-based operation, which I'll get to in a moment. But in a way, I think that this pandemic really shone a light on the needs of seniors in the community. And I think that's one takeaway, especially with, as you all know, social isolation and loneliness is of epidemic proportions in the county of Los Angeles. And just because the pandemic is slowly going away, we've got the vaccines, people are starting to get out more. Unfortunately, for our older adult population, this is going to continue to persist and be an issue, and provide and causing health risks that you again all know all of this, in terms of how it can impact both not only the mental but the physical well-being of older adults. So at our organization, Westside Pacific Villages, these are the types of services and also volunteer roles that we have available. And again, the Palos Verdes Peninsula Village, they are also recruiting volunteers. So if you're local to that area, I'm sure they would welcome the opportunity to have volunteers get involved to help. Our canned calls are now weekly. So as soon as the pandemic hit, we switched from monthly to weekly social support calls. We're still doing heavy errands and delivery. Obviously, technology training is something that we can provide to someone who wants to learn how to do online activities, and FaceTime and Zoom with family members. We can help with chores around the house. We are doing friendly visits, walking buddies, and we also provide limited transportation services at this time. There's other ways to get involved as a volunteer. And actually, what's really nice about the village model and concept is that our client members, so the senior members, can also volunteer and contribute. So it gives them something to do and a way to give back to their community. One other thing I just want to share that is kind of unique to us, or at least I think unique to us, and it started because of the pandemic. We instituted these weekly special deliveries. It kind of became something that our clients and our volunteers really look forward to. Every Friday, there was a care package that was delivered to our seniors' homes. We were able to get donations and sponsorships. So whether it was actually a meal, flowers, sometimes it was fun gifts. It was something that we found was really beneficial, not only because of the items that were being delivered, but more importantly, because it was a visit from a volunteer to drop off a care package. So while our free program has come to an end, and again, I'll get to that in a minute, we are still doing a special monthly delivery. So this is part of our membership fee going forward, is a free delivery every month of some type of special gift or meal. And then I think a lot of organizations had to institute virtual activities. And so we did that as well. And we will continue to do both virtual activities as well as we can, we'll start reintroducing in-person activities in a safe way. So effective October 1st, so this is last Friday, we did reinstitute a membership fee. One of the things that we had a goal was to try to maintain as many of the clients in our stated service area as possible. And so because we were running a free program, we created a low income program for low income seniors. So it's actually, we decided to call it WPV Cares. And so this is a way for a low income senior to continue to get support from us. And there's a sliding scale. But we reduced our membership fees significantly. So effective October 1st, our clients would have to pay $250 per year if they want to pay on an annual basis, or they can also pay on a month-to-month basis, which is also new for us, and it's $25 a month. So if you can see on there, most of those services that we are providing that is part of the membership fee would be the things that are done at home. So whether it's the visits, the social support, all of the different social interactive actions, technology training, light chores around the house, taking trash bins out to the curb, cleaning up yards, things like that. And then for the heavy volume transportation services, we are charging $5 a ride. So we provide the services, but there would be a each way $5 charge for rides within the local area. And so that does equate to a $10 round trip. That is still an extremely cost-effective way to get transportation services if you think about Uber or Lyft or a taxi, things like that. We also have limitations as to how many rides we can provide. We also do require or request at least a week's notice. So there are some guidelines there that people have to follow. And we also stress that we can't be the sole source of transportation. So we do make sure that our client members know about all the other types of transportation services that are available to them, especially in communities that have like a dial-a-ride program, things like that, Access Paratransit. Metro has some new cheaper or free programs. So we really are a supplement to all of those things. So we are always looking for volunteers. We have volunteer opportunities that are very flexible. Our volunteers get to pick and choose what they want to do, help when they can. Sometimes it's on the weekend. With transportation services, a volunteer can actually choose to just drop off a client and do a one-way drop off. A different volunteer would pick up the client and bring them home. This is all stuff that we manage from our office. So that enables a volunteer to have a very flexible schedule. So, as they say, it takes a village, and I appreciate the opportunity to share what we're doing and happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you so much, Carol. That wonderful work you're doing over there, particularly exciting that you were able to provide free services during most of the pandemic. That's great. Any questions of Carol? Yes.
Carol, how does Westside Pacific Villages deal with, or what is the support for members in terms of caregiving, healthcare? I mean, are people that are part of Westside Pacific Villages, are they receiving any kind of home care in terms of healthcare as part of what you provide?
That's a great question. I would say the majority of the clients we serve, and this may be common in other villages as well, we're still dealing with older adults when they're still pretty active. So maybe they're using a walker, they have a cane, but many are still pretty active. They want to continue to get out and about. They may need help, for example, climbing a ladder to change a light bulb. You know, they may need help with handyman services around the house. It was on one of the slides, I didn't go over it, but one of the other things that we do and a lot of other villages do is we provide referral resources. And so typically what happens is as someone needs more and more help, a lot of times it's a village or a village volunteer that's identifying that it might be time for someone to consider getting some more intensive in-home care. So we would do referrals to home care agencies. We do not provide that type of support. We don't train our volunteers to do that. It's not safe for our volunteers or our client members. So we will do referrals. And we actually do have clients who do have both the caregivers in the home and are still members of WPV because they like that social interaction and they like, they have developed relationships with our volunteers.
Right,
So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hey, Carol, this is Ronson. Thanks for your presentation. It was very, this is the first time I'm learning about it. So thank you very much. You know, I was just wondering, have you worked with an organization called LA Works? They're a volunteer-based organization, and I have a lot of friends there. And during the pandemic, they were doing welfare checks for seniors, you know, stopping by their houses, just for the very reason you mentioned. There was a lot of social isolation during the pandemic. So I was wondering if you ever worked with that group, and then how many like volunteers can you take in your organization at any one time?
Okay, so yes, familiar with LA Works. They actually have a website where we post our volunteer opportunities. And there were a couple neighborhood councils. So unlike your fabulous organization that you have here that supports the South Bay cities, for LA City and LA City proper, there are these neighborhood councils. And there were a couple in our local area that connected with us because they were needing to make sure that they had enough support to do these check-in calls. So we did partner with a couple local neighborhood councils. And as far as our volunteer base, we currently have about 200 to 250 volunteers, but we have gone as high as 350, close to 400 during the pandemic. So we really can manage a pretty high volume. We have a very good system that we use in terms of being able to process in. So we do have a screening process. So there's an application that a volunteer would need to complete. We put them through training. So there's actually a virtual training and orientation. And then we do a criminal background check because in some cases, someone is either going into the home or, even if they're making phone calls, we don't want there to be any issues with senior scamming. So we make sure we take that extra step. And if they are driving the client, we will do a DMV record review and ask for proof of auto insurance.
Thank you. Any other questions? I might just ask, so has your staff grown through this period of the pandemic in order to meet all of the needs, or have you still pretty much totally dependent on volunteers?
So we actually did add a part-time staff member to help during the pandemic, and we will likely keep that person on as we transition out. And then as far as the volunteer base, as you can tell, obviously it fluctuated, it went up, and then we're starting to see that we're losing some. But we usually are able to, knock on wood, maintain enough volunteers to support the client base that we have and their needs.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's exciting to see you expanding. I know that our South Bay village handles the Torrance area, and it tries to respond to needs along some of the beach cities, but it's nice to be able to collaborate with between villages. So thank you. For any other questions? Well, thank you so much for being here, and let's stay in touch and see if we can collaborate more. Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, so let us move on to our legislative update. I do see Janet Turner from Congressman Ted Lieu's office. Do you have any report for us this morning, Janet?
Actually, I do not. But we are standing by to see what happens with the reconciliation bill, because there is all kinds of good news that could be coming. And so I keep thinking every time I'm coming to this meeting, well, I will have it for that meeting. So fingers crossed that for the next meeting, I will have lots of good news. Good. But right now, we're kind of like just wait and see. But our office is always available to any of the constituents of the South Bay. And we're always happy to help with casework with regard to Medicare and Social Security and other senior issues. That's about all for me.
Great, thank you. And I hope that our attendees and participants in the working group will spread that word a little bit that Congressman Lieu has a really excellent caseworker base over there, that, if you do have problems that you've been trying to solve with government programs, sometimes just putting in a call to his office and getting the advice and input from a caseworker, and sometimes having them intercede for you. So it's very helpful to have that there. Thank you, Janet, for being so faithful in attending. So Ronson, do we have any other legislative participants this morning that you know of?
I do not. I do have sort of some. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Eric Pons, nice to meet you. First time meeting you. I guess you're with Assembly Member Reinstitute.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Pons. I'm with the Office of Assembly Member Reinstitute. I don't really have a big update this morning. We're just dealing with a lot of casework at the moment. We are focusing on ADD, DMV, and currently we are helping constituents with the rental assistance program. The housing is key. So if anyone has applied, we can check on the status of that application. So direct them our way. And I will share our office phone number in the comments in the chat section.
Wonderful. Can I just, following up on the rental assistance, we get questions about I know both the tenant and the landlord can apply for this, but is it true that if the tenant does not want to participate, then the landlord is not going to be getting any kind of assistance?
Yes, both of them have to actually participate. If the landlord starts the application, then the tenant does have to participate. If the tenant starts the application, the landlord doesn't need to participate. The money will still be given to the tenant. Then the tenant can just deal with the landlord on their own. But yes, if the landlord does apply first, the tenant does need to participate.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you both for being here. And we'll move now to an update from our Executive Director of COG, Jackie Backrack.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. You've already met two of our new stars, Jonathan Pacheco-Bell, who's the new regional planner, and Ronson Chu, who is working primarily on homeless services, but also will be staffing this committee. Ronson has hit the ground running, and we're getting some very interesting homeless projects that will be helpful in the South Bay that we're going to be able to fund. And I'll let him talk more about some of the work he's doing. But I wanted to mention that we're working on our local travel network. And the local travel network is something that we think is going to be very helpful to seniors. What we're doing in the South Bay is we're not so much advocating bike lanes as we're advocating SHAROs, which are shared streets, slow speed streets that will be signed, and it will say South Bay Local Travel Network. And on those streets, it will be, you'll be able to drive more safely if you're in scooters, electric bikes, regular bikes, and neighborhood electric vehicles. We think neighborhood electric vehicles are a really great way for seniors to get around. They go 25 miles an hour. They're cheap, or inexpensive, I should say, and they really get you where you need to go. We've done analysis that our trips are 3 miles or less, mostly, and so there's more and more happening in the beach cities. We are going to be meeting with, or we're planning to be meeting with the state California Air Resources Board, because they're underwriting electric bikes, but we would like them to underwrite neighborhood electric vehicles as well. So, I mean, when I say underwrite, they're giving a rebate, and neighborhood electric vehicles are like $10,000 to $12,000. If they would give a rebate to get them closer to $5,000 to $6,000, we think they'd fly off the shelves. They're available at Costco, you know, whatever you can get them. So, and there's also dealerships in the South Bay now. So we're working very hard on the local travel network. We're focusing on 2 corridors, one being the Beach Cities corridor from El Segundo to Redondo Beach, and the other being Hawthorne, Lawndale, and Gardena as the second corridor. So that's something you'll hopefully hear more about. We're working on the fiber network is up and running in all of our city halls. And now we're working on meeting with other providers to see if we can extend the program to businesses and possibly residents. So we know that some of you have coverage in your area, but you're paying a lot. And so we want to bring more competition into the South Bay, if not even better service. And then what I really wanted to tell you about is some of our upcoming events. Our board meeting, if you were interested in the ADUs, we have a really interesting board meeting on October 28th. I was able to hear a presentation by a woman who did this for the Little Hoover Commission, and it's about the globalization of what's happening to housing. The fact that we are bemoaning the fact that we don't have housing in California and we don't have affordable housing, it's happening all over the world. And it's big companies buying up housing. She gives this incredible presentation, which we're going to be hearing at our board meeting. And I think if you're interested at all, it's 6 o'clock on October 28th. And then we're also going to hear from Bill Brand, the mayor of Redondo Beach, who is going to talk about the status of his initiative that he's trying to get on the ballot to protect local control of land use for cities. So that's a housing meeting. In November, on November 18th, we're meeting a week early because of Thanksgiving. We're going to be focusing on water and talking about the drought and some of the other issues, and maybe even talking about the effect of the oil spill and what's going on. That program is coming together. And then in January, I only have a tentative confirmation, but we do have a tentative confirmation from the sheriff. Sheriff Villanueva has asked to speak at different councils of governments, and he's tentatively confirmed that he'll be at our January 27th meeting. Most exciting, and the thing that's coming together for us, is March 24th. March 24th is our 21st annual General Assembly. It's our big meeting of the year. We're planning it for the Carson Community Center, an in-person event this year. Last year it was virtual. And we're calling it Back to the Future, and I can't remember the rest of the title, sorry. And so we're going to be talking about the South Bay and how we're growing into the future, what we've learned and what the future brings to us. And so that program's coming together. The most important thing right now is we're looking for sponsors. That program is actually free to everyone that attends. And it's going to end at lunch. It will include a luncheon. And so we need sponsorships. And if you can help us with that, suggesting names, or even if you have an organization that can sponsor, we would really appreciate that. So I think that's it from the COG. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, hey, Jackie, I also just wanted to share our new website. Lori reminded me to share that.
Thank you. Thank you. We've worked really hard on a brand new website. And yeah, are you going to show what it looks like?
Yeah. Do you guys see my screen?
Yeah, it doesn't have the website yet. It has your email.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see.
Thank you, Gloria. That's great. I forgot about our website.
Yeah.
And that was done pretty quickly too, wasn't it? It seemed like a very efficient process.
Well, it was maybe quick to you. It didn't seem quick to me. But
you were in the middle of it.
Right. But this is our with a lot of pictures, and you can come here for any of your agendas, more information on our programs. And we'd love to get your comments. And you can see that the senior services agendas will be posted, and you can look at our archives. So we hope that you'll look at our website and take advantage of it, and send any comments that you have to me or Ronson or David Leger. Thank you so much, Ronson.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question. Did you guys ever move? Did you ever move your offices?
Yes, actually what's behind me is our new office. I was telling somebody yesterday, it's like, if you can make like one of the worst decisions you could possibly make, we moved in to our new offices, or we started paying for our new offices on March of 2020, which was like the worst possible time. And so we haven't moved in yet. We have people that are working there if they would like to, but the office is not officially open. So if you go there, the door is locked. It's at the corner of Sepulveda and Crenshaw, and it's a business park, Park Del Amo, and there's a fountain, a really pretty fountain in the center, and our office is right next to the fountain. My name's on the door. Hopefully we're going to have an open house someday. I was going to mention this also, we were going to be talking about meeting in person, but with the governor's new orders and AB 361, we'll be continuing virtual for a while. So at some point we'll have hopefully an open house. It's nice offices, but they're not open yet.
Great, thank you. Any other questions of Jackie? Sounds like a great lineup of meetings in the future. So thanks for all you do, Jackie. Okay, so we have set aside a little time here for Ronson to kind of lead a little bit of a discussion, some brainstorming about the future, sharing some of his ideas and vision for our working group. So I will turn it over to Ronson.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Hi, everyone. I am the new guy. And so I knew actually Grace Farwell from before I started working here. She collaborated with me on some various projects I was doing before this. I used to work for LASA and then with the homeless court with the LA County. But yeah, I wanted to, this was my first meeting and it's been great. I learned so much just preparing for this meeting and hearing the speakers today. But I wanted to get feedback from you all on kind of what you hope to get out of this meeting, and maybe some topics in the future that you might like to hear, or maybe something that we've already talked about in the past that you want to have a deeper dive into. And I'd just like to open it up and see if anyone has any comments, suggestions, or feedback. Okay.
Well, I think the two additional panelists for the ADU today were terrific, and thanks so much for bringing them. And I think it was a good opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about Jonathan Pacheco Bell, who's our new regional planner, because each of the cities, 16 cities in the South Bay here, it has the opportunity to work with him on so many of his projects. So thanks for doing that, Ronson.
Sure. Yeah.
It would be helpful. We one of the projects, that Grace was working on was age-friendly cities. We don't actually have a funding source for that. I know Harriet turned her video on, and I don't know if you were going to talk about that. We still are very interested in trying to figure out how we can get some funding so we can work with age-friendly cities. I know the League is willing to help us, League of Women Voters, but we still don't have that. That's still on our agenda somewhere. I don't know if you would like us to look for speakers from some state agency on what they're doing, some county agencies. I think the county, we have to follow up on this. The county is forming a Department of Aging, a new Department of Aging, which I think was supposed to be coming together in the fall. I don't know which we are now in, and I don't know where we are with that right now. So are these the kinds of things? I mean, it would really be helpful to Ronson if you could sort of say, you've been to these meetings before, what is it that is really helpful? The other thing that I would just throw out there, because I'm looking at Monique, is do the libraries have something to say? Are you going to be doing something that everybody should know about engaging and interesting seniors? So those are the kinds of things that we really would like to have you throw on the table right now.
Well, I will pitch in there. Thank you so much, Jackie. So this is also my first time attending this particular working group. And it has just been fascinating. And I've just enjoyed so much all of the different aspects that we have been hearing with the ADUs, the enforcement that Jonathan was talking about, and also about the village. I am with the library. I'm the archivist and the local history librarian with the library. So I create programs that are specifically for adults. I'm in what's called the Adult Services Department. So aging and senior programming falls into my wheelhouse. I would be interested in, in hearing what this group thinks would be beneficial, because we'd like to respond to community needs as far as our programming goes. The library is getting a number of different electronic resources, and we are currently working on programs to share that specifically with our older population. There's a movement with digital literacy, and I'm working on getting that out to our community. That's one thing that I'm working on. I'm also with Brett, part of the board for the Peninsula Village group, for the Palos Verdes Peninsula Village, and that's I'm volunteering to work with them. So I have a very big interest in what this group does and how both through the village and also through the library and programming, we can address some of the issues. So don't know if that's helpful.
No, that is really helpful. Actually, when you mentioned digital literacy, I immediately thought of the fiber network that we're doing, right, Jackie? And how we're doing a community kind of center for digital, I guess equality. I think that's the word I'm kind of looking for, is to make it broadband use more equitable throughout our communities. And so, yeah, maybe do you see any synergies around that?
I absolutely do. Through the state library for the next coming year, the state library is funding 6 different platforms as part of their workforce development program. And I can send you this information. This is hot off the presses, just coming. We should be starting it in the second week of October. But it is specifically designed to try to help those people who have lost their jobs during the pandemic or need training to improve their skills. But there are several of the programs that are specifically for seniors in our older community that is created by seniors for seniors. And that's something that I think would be, I think we could do something absolutely if this group could help promote those. And it's being provided to libraries throughout the state and the Palos Verdes Library District. So we serve the Palos Verdes Peninsula, the community is actually getting all 6 of the platforms, but we can check in with the other local libraries within the 16 cities to see which ones they are getting as well. So that might be a nice collaborative work that we could do together, specifically on that.
I was going to say that sounds great. And we also have connections with County Internal Services Department is doing a Deleting the Digital Divide kind of a forum, and we can find out if there's a senior component to that. So that we could do a program on digital literacy.
Yeah. Bronson, what is the best, should I send information to you? How should we communicate? Is that the best way to do this?
Yeah, definitely. You have my email you've been getting my emails for the agendas and everything.
This was actually forwarded to me by my supervisor, but I can, if you would put me on the list, that would be great. I could just get on directly, or if you could give it to me, then yeah.
Yeah, let me type in my email.
Sure, that'd be great.
Easy, it's just ronson@southbaycities.org. And then I'll also get you on the email list of this as well.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And I'm at msugimoto at pvld.org. I'll put it in the thing.
Oh, that's easy. Okay.
The other thing that actually has occurred just in my capacity as a reference librarian, so people will come to the desk and ask for assistance. And I've had actually several questions recently from seniors who are not able to pay their rents and are in jeopardy of losing their housing. And is there a specific office that is helping? That's why I wanted to know Anna's number and the other person. I'm sorry, blanking on her name, but that might not be the PATH person. But is there another group within South Bay cities that I could refer people to?
Well, I think PATH is definitely a good place to start, because they have the emergency situation, the mid-level, and then hopefully, getting people into a long-term situation. So do you have, I think Anna put her information in the chat.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think Bronson is a great clearinghouse for anything. I'm like that.
Oh,
Bronson is working on our homeless issues. And go ahead, Bronson.
Yeah, and then this is the main website from the California government. I mean, this is the big initiative right now, is being able to pay back rent all the way back to April of 2020. So I mean, this is huge. Housing is Key is the program, and it's being administered by different county agencies as well as local nonprofits. So yeah, I can definitely get you connected to the right agency depending on your, so is this like in PV that is primarily, okay.
Yeah, it was a resident, several residents in RPV.
Okay,
But since we serve the peninsula, I get questions from people all over, and not necessarily from the peninsula, even people who are just using the Palos Verdes Library District facility, so.
Okay, great. Yeah,
great, thank you.
So the website is housing.cal.gov and COVID_RR. I can also send this out in the follow-up to the meeting when I send out the presentations as well.
That would be great. And I can share this with my adult services librarians as well.
I think it's important that you all know Ronson's principal job with the COG is homelessness and homeless prevention. So he will be a good clearinghouse for that.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. That was really helpful, actually. But it gave me some ideas. It sounds like funding for older age communities is definitely something that we want to look into. Programs by the state agencies, a potential new Department of Aging with the LA County. Monique talked about the library being a resource, doing some digital literacy work. And how maybe we can, do the stuff that we're doing on the fiber network to bridge the digital divide. So yeah, that's all really good stuff. And then maybe we do have a presentation on rental assistance and open up the meeting for anyone who's interested in that to come to the meeting next time that we do it, which will be in December.
Well, in Ronson, I was thinking as Douglas Look was giving his presentation that he would be a good person to get involved in our age-friendly cities process too. He had such really creative ideas.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Thanks, Britt.
Can I just also mention one other thing that I have a personal interest in? And Jackie, you referred to this, I think, earlier about age-friendly cities. I have a particular interest in creating intergenerational programming, where we are, doing programming with our younger population, with our older population, with that effort to create age-friendly cities. I think it's infrastructure, both the physical, but also the services, programs, and getting youth involved. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that struck a bell or struck a note with me, Jackie, when you said that.
Right.
Yes, I think that's such a great idea. So much potential there in terms of both sides benefiting a great deal from that relationship.
Oh,
Yes,
Harriet, did you have something, Harriet? Saw you raise your hand.
Yes, I'm from the League of Women Voters of the Beach Cities. Yes, we have been involved in the following what's going on with age-friendly cities and trying to we were working with Hawthorne and Inglewood, and really interested in expanding the age-friendly cities. And where the Department on Aging is having town hall meetings throughout the state on called hubs and spokes, and they're looking at revamping how all funding has been given to the for the states for seniors and those with disabilities. So they're looking at revamping the whole funding program and looking at how people looking to the seniors in where they live and providing the services that would be needed for them. And so they're having at the town hall meetings, they can give people can give input on their ideas, and so they've been having these town hall meetings. Is everybody aware of that? Maybe are you aware of that?
No, I need to look into it. Maybe share it with folks too as well when we send out the email. Yeah. October
12th from 2 to 3:30 is going to be the town hall meeting for LA and Southern California. And there'll be a lot of different ways to to give your input to them. You can have written, or I haven't attended any of the other, they've had other meetings in the state so far, and you can go online to the Department on Aging, and Hubs and Spokes is the title. So I think that is really important. Actually, it's important. The Department on Aging is really an important one to be following now, because they're working with the master plan on aging, and they had to have advisory committees that are giving input, and everything you can see is online. All my throat is dry. It's transparent what they're doing, and everyone has the chance to give input. So yeah, that's everybody. I think everyone dealing with aging needs to do that, because if they're working with the master plan on aging, that master plan most of it is relying, most of it had input from our age-friendly cities program. So that's all part of the master plan included. And so right now, there are all these initiatives that people can write to support, or you can add things into their website. Okay, all right. Anyway, check out Department on Aging and the Master Plan for Aging, and our age-friendly cities website. Everybody should be looking at that, because they have everything from housing, the environment, I mean, all kinds of information for helping your city become more friendly. And okay, that's
so Harriet, do you have a link for that October 12th meeting that you could forward to us?
I was trying to put, I guess, is the chat not open or something? I couldn't, I was trying to add some information and I couldn't.
Oh, I found it here. I can share my screen right now.
I just emailed you something that has a link, just so you know.
Oh,
here it is.
Okay, great.
Aging.cal.gov, and I'll send this out. But this looks like, yeah, October 12th for Southern California.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then if you can't see it, view it at that time, it'll be posted. So you would be able to see what was said, but you can, yeah, definitely can give input and other written input. It tells you everything on the website.
Great. Thanks for sharing.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Any other input? Well, thank you, Ronson. That gives us some good ideas going forward, and we will work on planning some other topics that we can pursue in the future. Anything else, Ronson?
No, I just have two quick updates. If I can share with the state legislation, that thought might be pertinent for this group. Just make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Let's see, can people see the community care expansion document that I have up? Or are you still seeing the?
They're seeing hubs and spokes.
Okay, let me see. Oh, here it is. Okay. All right, so just quick update. In the new plan for the state, they're releasing about $805 million of one-time funding for counties to preserve and expand capacity of residential, adult, and senior care facilities through the acquisition and construction or rehabilitation of property. So I think this is part of the whole Project Home Key package that they're sending out. The Department of Social Services is going to prioritize projects for residents who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. And so this looks like new money that's coming out on board that will subsidize capital projects to build more housing for senior care facilities. So just wanted to share that. And there is the LA County has a wait list for elderly family public housing in 7 sites, including the South Bay Gardens. They've just extended that wait list to the end of December. And this is the website you can go to for more information. And I'll share this as well in an email. So yeah, so that's all.
Okay, well, thanks so much. And welcome again, Ronson. It's wonderful to have you on board. And do we have any other announcements from any organizations, cities, anything happening that we need to know about? Thanks for sharing that October 12th date, Harriet. And we'll look forward to participating in that. So, okay, hearing nothing else, our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, December 7th at the same time here. So we look forward to seeing you then, and thanks so much for joining us. See you later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.